Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being back here. I hope you enjoyed the morning and the lunch. And welcome back to also our online participants. Sorry that we had a little bit of a delay, but we had so intensive discussions here in the breakout sessions that we add into the lunch break and decided spontaneously to start a little bit later to give you more time. But now I see everybody back here in the room, so I'm impressed. And I can tell you as well that we like very much the discussions we are having. And the breakout discussions seem to be very intensive, and I don't want to lose more time. We have our three moderators here to present the results. We are particularly interested in what is actionable, but one after the other again. Dominique, we start with you, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon. Welcome after lunch also from myself. Indeed, I had the pleasure to lead the first breakout session that looked at the community of practice activities and outlook for the future, a bit preparing also the plenary session that we will have later on. We've had something like 60 colleagues in the room in 6 different tables, having very intensive discussions around 4 questions about future activities, about future organization, which areas to improve, how we can collaborate better together, how the Commission could support that, what could be the elements of the work program or work plan for the future community of practice. So you can imagine that it's not necessarily easy to summarize very quickly 50 minutes of intensive discussions among so many people. But my 6 moderators did a great job of actually putting these things together. And I'm also grateful to Christopher, our rapporteur, who then managed to still trim it down to some more practical and actionable summary that I could present to you. So, on future direction and activities, I will jump directly to the content. Participants in general emphasize the need for the community of practice to evolve into a genuine community and of genuine practice. And that, I think, if you read this with capital letter, you would understand what that means. That really serves a space that can connect ideas underpinning the Industry 5.0. At the same time, it will also require the Commission to act as a technical enabler to ensure that this actually works. So the community of practice was seen as, on the one hand, as a kind of a connector, a space in which people can interact with each other and facilitate collaboration to address shared challenges. There was also support to actually expand the community beyond the Brussels bubble, and I think that probably would need a little bit of discussion what this actually means, because all of you represent all of the EU, but apparently the messages do not necessarily trickle down beyond that's what is considered a Brussels bubble into the member states and into individual organizations to the extent that would be important. And now, in terms of practical actions, suggested activities for the community of practice in the future included acting as a knowledge hub to consolidate existing information, providing pilot environments for projects, experimentation and demonstration, develop tailored programs, particularly to involve SMEs better, especially when this is particularly important, to progress further on the uptake of the principles of Industry 5.0, developing further tools to support companies to implement these principles and create benchmarks to demonstrate the value of this approach. Thematically, the community could further explore such areas as circular economy, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and especially in relation to human-centric data protection. Looking at the work program, there was a call actually to have a work program or a work plan for the community of practice that would be quite clear so that the members knew what the activities are, what is the timeline, what can be expected. With definition of short and long-term goals, also greater clarity on the roles of different people, roles of different bodies, and also the expectations of everybody. The community of practice should also focus on leveraging existing knowledge, so also work as a little bit of a knowledge repository. With regard to organization, participants proposed that the community of practice should function as an umbrella structure to improve coordination while remaining increasingly self-managed. A balance was recommended between a stronger bottom-up approach with greater ownership from the community and also continued support from the Commission. Looking at the role of the Commission, long-term funding was seen as essential to ensure continuity and support a sustained strategic approach, as well as cooperation within the community of practice. Now, beyond funding, the Commission was seen as an actor that could provide strong political narrative for Industry 5.0 overall, promote awareness about the concept and the practicalities of its implementation, and also take care of more internal coordination across different services to make the most out of Industry 5.0 and to leverage the community of practice. It was also seen necessary for the Commission or useful for the Commission to support networking by enabling members to connect with each other more easily, but also to connect with other relevant initiatives and communities that have similar objectives. Many thanks for this, and many thanks for listening. And I pass the floor to Karel.
Thanks a lot. I have for sale 10 points. There was an extremely rich discussion. The steam was coming out in the end, so we were eating 15 minutes from the lunch. So thanks a lot for the great debate. And so point number one, we had a live presentation of the online self-assessment tool for companies to self-assess yourself, including results of it being used already in the past offline. And here you see the web address. So go around and play with it. I think it looks nice. Let us know what you think. Two, on taxonomy. After some discussions, we had a voting. There's a large majority agreeing that it's okay to have different definitions that can coexist on Industry 5.0, depending on the topic. So if it's more about, focusing on markets and trying to identify new opportunities, it can be wider. If it's about investments or other elements, it could be, much more framed, and it's fine to have it like that. Number three, connecting to that, there is a request for more directionality from policymakers in general. EU, national level as well, to steer more into certain directions of where to go as a general takeaway. Number four, simplicity. It's good to have online tools and self-assessment tools and evaluation and monitoring, but if it's frameworks that come on top, they failed, they're bound to fail. So what about integration and taking up with elements that already exist? We're number five now. As part of the translation of simplicity is to try to translate as much as possible societal performance into economic performance and make that measurable in terms of KPIs, with examples, with proven cases and so on. So, and that relates to the next point, which is really number 6, I think, it's to incentives. Because if you have those incentives as a company, if you know that, you're going to increase your business or increase your economic performance, then you have an incentive to, go apply it. And more generally, so there's was a general call for more incentives for business, not just to use the tool, but to apply Industry 5.0 and its elements more generally. Number 7, on aggregation with standards, there again, it's about more directionality, more clarity, and simplification, aligning with standards. Number 8 was a call for better inclusion of workers and users into assessments. Number 9 was about, in terms of mainstreaming the tool and also the instruments, to summarize discussions and sliders we had, a combination of carrots and sticks. I've got lots of examples there. So that was a key main message. Number 10 was a call for more integration of NGOs and social actors in the whole exercise, and in particular in monitoring and evaluation. And actually I cheated because I have 11. And 11 is there on the table. It's a very detailed, concrete agenda for action, because we had a very intense low-tech posted session, And lots of ideas came out of that, and we're still processing it, but lots of ideas for concrete action. So thanks a lot for the group. That's it. Over to Christian.
Okay, it's my time now, and I got 6 points, but one of the feedback from the session is that we really need to improve communication skills and synthesis. So I'm going to make it 3, okay, out of my capacity. So the first one is on foresight. So we all know that it's not a new tool, but it has been rediscovered by policymakers because of different situations, like the pandemic, as I mentioned before. So it needs to be also reshaped into something actionable to fulfill the interests of the community. And as part of that, one particular aspect that was mentioned is that how this can be integrated as a kind of a tool to unpack different type of conversations. So it was very much voted as something that we want to keep doing. The second point was on this territorial aspect about how we engage with policymakers. And there were a couple of cases that were highlighted about the ecosystems of the different regions where the policymakers are willing to go beyond some of transformative policies. And Industry 5.0 can be a vehicle to move in that direction. One particular tool or one particular policy that we addressed was a case that generated debate was public procurement. But the type of public procurement that can be connected to, for example, Industry 5.0 is much more complex. It's not just applying a technology, but it's kind of how you can integrate different elements, or could be more transformative at the ecosystem level. For example, infrastructure, and how this engage different type of factors, but also different policies. So that type of policy, it's a vehicle maybe to explore how Industry 5.0 can open up connections between investment, industry, and society. The last point is that unpacking even more Industry 5.0. This is a community of practice, and the role is actually disseminate and unpack and reshape the concept in order to make it more actionable. So one of the discussion was how Industry 5.0 is a tool to have conversations about industrial change. If we set it in that way, that could be an effective way to reach out to different contexts. And as part of that, the last comment was on how we improve exactly the communication and how we integrate AI, not as a topic of discussion, but our own tool to have a dialogue with community of practice, with users, how we use AI as a synthesis, how we integrate that as a tool for ourselves. The last point that I want to do is that as part of the slide, we have different options, and 47%, that is, let's say, 15 people in the room said that they are really willing to work in co-design with the regions, roadmaps and strategies on industrial transformation. And I think that is a kind of an attractive step in terms of understanding also how we move from early discussions last year on the hubs on Industry 5.0 into the place-based dimension of Industry 5.0, how we can get it to a local ecosystem, but also to existing projects that are already activating industrial transformation and reinforcing the place-based aspect. I think it's a very good agenda for the following step for the community of practice. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with this, we move over to the next panel session, which Dominique will moderate. So I hand over to you. And it is about future prospects for the community of practice. Thank you. We can.
Thank you very much, Doris. So now we will build a little bit on the breakout session that we had, as I also already announced in the morning. You have just heard the report, but we will want to take the discussion a little bit further. So we would like to identify some maybe concrete priorities and the next step to strengthen the collaboration within the community of practice to better support the implementation of the Industry 5.0 principles and also strengthen the impact across policies. At the same time, we would definitely want to see also some actions that would be able to strengthen the interactions and the integration of the community itself. So we have today five really fantastic speakers that will share with us their take on these questions. They represent a broad range of experience and backgrounds, but I think that what they share, what they have in common, is an in-depth knowledge of the Industry 5.0 concept and its principles, and also their active participation in the community of practice. So with this, I would like to invite first Steven Dont, who is a senior researcher at TNO in the Netherlands and a visiting professor at the Catholic University of Leuven, here in Belgium. He coordinates the Horizon Europe Bridges 5.0 project on workforce skills. Please take the first seat. See there, it's actually very smart. You see there are photos. We are supposed to sit under the photos so that you don't mix us up. Steven is also a steering board member of the Community of Practice 5.0 and also the European Workplace Innovation Network. Then we have Žiga Valic, who is in EU Affairs Manager at Flanders Make. Based in Brussels, here and in Leuven, he focuses on fostering research, innovation partnerships, and collaborative projects across Europe. He has extensive experience in building networks between industry, research organizations, and policy stakeholders. Welcome. Greta Braun, who is a researcher at Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden and co-director of the Upskilling Academy, working on skills development and human-centric transformation of industry. We also have Peter Totterdill, who is a founding director of Workplace Innovation Europe, an Irish social enterprise delivering research, advocacy, education, and consultancy. The enterprise also created Fresh Thinking Labs, which now hosts the Industry 5.0 platform. Welcome, Peter. And last but not least, we have Łukasz Osuszek, currently Senior Digital Transformation Manager at Danone. He holds a PhD in economics and over the years has served as an expert to the Polish National Research Center, government agencies, and expert councils. So, welcome. Yes, water may be a good idea. Now, before we actually jump into the discussion, I also have a task for all of you here in the room. In this session, as the discussion unrolls, please reflect on your main interests and in the community of practice, and also on the role you could play as an active member of that community. At the end of the session, we'll have a Slido poll where we will actually ask you about these questions. So if you're a little bit prepared, it will probably be easier for you to then answer the questions that we have prepared for you. Now, without further ado, I would actually like to ask you a kind of a warm-up question. So for a very short answer, most of you, if not all of you, I think, not all of you, but most of you participated in our breakout session on reflection on the future. Now you heard the report from this session. What surprised you the most in terms of the messages that come out? Steven, maybe let's start with you.
Yeah, well, the first message...
You want to use a mic. There are handheld mics, sorry, I should have told you that.
Well, the first message that really struck me was the genuine community, that the community of practice should really become that. So that's the first thing. Resilient industry, second idea that was quite important. And one that I took from the earlier session was the political narrative that is important to support the community practice.
Thank you. Žiga, any surprises?
Yes, definitely the willingness of people to continue with the work and the motivation actually to take the ownership. So I kind of expected a little bit more of a, let's say, resistance from certain stakeholders, but I was very pleasantly surprised.
Okay, so positive vibes. That was a surprise.
Indeed.
Good to hear. Greta?
Yeah, I agree with Žiga that I was positively surprised how interested people were. We talked about the assessment tool in our session, and there was a lot of interest in how can we take this further and how can we motivate the companies to actually use that. So that was very good to hear.
Okay, great. Łukasz?
Fully aligned. I'm amazed by the spirit of this society. So it's a pleasure to be with you, to discuss, to have a passionate and a little bit heated, but in a good way, discussions with you. So what I really like is we are all thinking alike. we see the future, we know how Industry 5.0 is important, and right now we are really care about how to move it from the only theoretical into the practical approach. So that's fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Łukasz. And Peter?
Well, I'm a little bit too old to be surprised by anything these days, but what has really delighted me was that the prediction that we were making last night over dinner, that this session would unleash a load of ideas, a load of passion, a load of commitment, has actually come true.
Okay, great. Well, let's continue in that vein, now without any surprises. I would like all of you to consider what should be the 3 big tickets, or what could be the 3 big tickets. Priorities or actions the community of practice should actually do, should go for in the next few years in order to really develop further and become even more impactful for its members. Peter, maybe I'll start with you.
Thank you. Well, firstly, and I think this isn't new, but we've been thinking for a long, long time with this community that we need to move Industry 5.0 from what many companies perceive as a fairly abstract sort of academic concept into actionable knowledge, to really focus on developing the tools, the practical resources, the facilities out there to guide companies, perhaps particularly SMEs, to actually understand the principles of it and how they can be applied within their own organizations. I think secondly, and quite closely linked to that, is that the focus of the community of practice has to shift more towards practitioners through practitioner-led activities. So this might be, for example, one of the things we found incredibly valuable in the past, and I've tested this out with a few companies here today, peer-to-peer learning between different companies. If you're leading change within your organization, it's often a very, very lonely place to be. And there are things perhaps you feel difficult to share with your own colleagues, but actually peer-to-peer connection can be very useful. And maybe also other sessions where we're bringing together academics and companies together in the same place to solve real-world problems. Then the third thing, I think, is that we really need to increase our online presence, both to shout to the rest of the world what Industry 5.0 is about, but also to increase that sense of what somebody called a living ecosystem within the community of practice itself, better opportunities for bottom-up instigation of different kinds of actions. I think those 3 things would really galvanize this.
Thank you, Peter. So resonating also the connectivity that we also discussed in the previous session. Łukasz, your 3 big tickets?
My take on this one is like, again, I'm going to try to simplify it. It's basically, we've been discussing and we've been trying to understand what is really working from the perspective of community of practice and what is the area that we can improve just to be better in the execution of that, not staying only in a theory but moving into the practice. So I'm going to try to make it simple to better digestion, especially after the lunch. So take a look at the area of the how community of practice is organized, like a typically project management. Education, which is also the area which is super, super important and is going to play the key role in the Industry 5.0, and moving it into the practice. So execution, finding the ways to work on concrete projects to connect the dots and the existing network of the services, network of the specialists, network of the research centers. That's going to help us to move forward. And what is super, super important, we all have this right now in the mindset. I believe we are sharing the same one, and that we need stronger partnership with the European Union or visible, let's say, link with that. So something that's going to really help us with driving the change, something that's going to help us be more effective in maybe in the financial aspects. Whenever we are talking about the experimentation, whenever we need to learn fast, to adopt some of the new technologies or way of the working, there needs to be some kind of the exercise done. For this kind of the exercise, it will be brilliant to unleash the special funding that's going to help us to move faster.
Thank you. Focus on the practice. Greta?
Okay, I also have 3 points. I think first point is spread the word about Industry 5.0. And the second point connects to that. What do we want to spread the word? We need to become visible, as Peter said as well, and we want to make visible what are good practices in terms of Industry 5.0. So I think that's an important thing to find out for us. What is a good Industry 5.0 practice, and how can we highlight those projects, companies that really do good? And then I come to my last action that I think is really, really foundational for a community. For a community to work and really, flourish, I think we need to build trust within the community. So we need to be human-centric to ourselves in a way. And I think, especially in this time with geopolitical threats and so on, it's even more important that we in Europe, we stick together and we go away a little bit from this not invented here feelings sometimes. So really making this a community and see how can we build trust among us here in the room. I think we know how we can do that, for example, through regular interactions and through strong leadership and so on. So these were the three.
Trust is a basis for community building.
Trust is the base.
Very important. Thank you. Shiga.
Yes, so I would actually continue from, I think, Greta's second big ticket, and that's basically, unfortunately, the current geopolitical situation shows how dependent we are on energy resources, which are outside of European Union, and also other elements. We've seen this in 2020, in 2022, and I think why not using this community and the Industry 5.0 approach, as an alternative, a niche alternative, but it does address the human centricity, sustainability, and resilience. So I think, unfortunately, the timing is actually very right here for the community of practice 5.0. The second, I would say, big ticket is definitely industry participation. So I think this was said already in the previous panels and during the discussion. In the end, all of the activities should serve the industry. And then if I come to the last point, I think, if we want to have the industry involved, we definitely want to have a well-defined, well-structured program with, clear objectives and a timeline. So for me, these are the three big tickets for the community of practice as it stands today.
Thank you, Žiga. Interesting to connect actually the concept and the pillars of Industry 5.0 as an illustration of the European way of life, of the European socioeconomic model, as a differentiator to what we see around us. Thank you, Stephen. Your three big tickets.
Of course, I would say and for all the actions and all the tickets already said. But what I would add to it is that we have to understand the challenge that Industry 5.0 poses. We know that, and I'm referring here to figures that Nathalie Grinon will share later on, that about 30% of companies in Europe are already doing it. So it is not the wheel that is invented, it is something that we're doing. But of course, the 70% of companies that need to change in this direction. So that's a challenge for the community practice. Second, we need to understand how we're communicating in this world. So probably the community of practice would have to engage an influencer or something like that, because to bring the message across. And the third, linking to the element of trust, we also need to understand that the community of practice is probably a northern Western European thing. So we have to really engage with new member states, but also with the regions that are not well connected. So those things should be on the agenda of the community of practice.
Thank you. So enlarging the scope and getting better inputs and uptake also across the EU. And about the influencer, maybe the community of practice itself could become an influencer. All right, thank you. Thanks a lot. I think these were really complementary ideas. So we have now 15 great ideas that we should take into the future. But now let's go a bit more into detail. And for the second round of questions, now I would ask you, each of you, a different question, actually. So we'll start with Giga. How do you think we can increase the uptake of Industry 5.0 principles across policy, research, and industrial stakeholders? We discussed that this is necessary, also as part of the big ticket, so how do we do it?
Well, basically, first of all, these are three different groups, so you have to find the common denominator, right? And I've already mentioned our dependence on, very concretely, energy resources, but we also know, that we have an aging population, that our productivity, as a lot of reports say, is decreasing. So, why, again, not using the Industry 5.0 approach to address, or at least try to address, some of these issues? I'm not saying it's a silver bullet, far away from it. So I think the community in itself is, it got from the infancy period. I think there is something structured, and one of the remarks earlier before the lunch was, now the meat has to be put on the bones, right? So that's maybe one approach. We also hear a lot, or at least, I'm based here in Brussels, we hear a lot about how the US and China are working on productivity, and these productivity surges there, and why not applying this to Europe? I don't agree. I think it's a different ecosystem. The approach is different, and like you put it, we have our own way of life. The working on the industry. You have a lot of different member states in the European Union, a different history, etc. So again, I think it can be, this forum can be kind of a pilot to connect the dots. And when I say connect the dots, which are the dots here? I think many of you probably are in different fora, right? You're in public-private partnerships like EFRA, Aspire, ADRA. And, a lot of projects in these PPPs, if I mention them, because, so I work for Flanders Make, we're a research institute. We are members of EFRA, we do participate in some of the projects of ADRA, and you have these overlapping communities. But I think none of those communities actually addresses completely, I would say, the three pillars in a holistic approach. It's always sustainability and some human centricity, but the resilience is not there. I mean, resilience is like, now we're starting to figure out, oh, maybe we should pay more attention. I also coordinate a project similar as Stephen, and we see, resilience is really something that we should pay more attention. So I think it's also a good moment because we are just ahead of, or during the negotiations for the new MFF, so multi-annual financial framework. You will have Horizon Europe 2.0 and the Competitiveness Fund, That's why my call for the political backing, because if you put reference to Industry 5.0 in these programs, you can then, I think, have some of the funding and, let's say, some kind of pilot projects that Lukas was talking about. And yeah, I'll stop here, but these are my thoughts on how to connect the dots, and I definitely think a lot of things are done there. They should just be better connected and not reinvented.
Thank you, Giga. Many important points. Maybe I would summarize with the putting meat on the bones. We don't want the concept to be a walking skeleton. So another question of the sort of how. We have good ideas, and we mentioned also that we need to strengthen collaboration among the members of the community of practice. So Peter, how do you think this can be done?
Yeah, great question, and one which has been running through our discussion so far today, I think. I come back to the description by the first speaker this morning about a community of practice being a living ecosystem. Are we a living ecosystem? Well, yes and no. We're living, we're here, and that face-to-face contact is a really important way of building relationships, building capital. Are we an ecosystem? Possibly not, because when we go away from here, it will be very, very difficult for us to maintain that contact to actually keep things going. So it's been mentioned in one of the sessions this morning that actually having an interactive online platform where we could keep the connection, where we could keep the dialogue going, where we could share knowledge, where we could deliver a lot of other resources would be essential. Now, I have to declare an interest here because 10 years ago, my colleagues and I developed a platform called Fresh Thinking Labs. And during the course of the Bridges project over the past 5 years, that platform has been making a transition to becoming the Industry 5.0 platform. And our aim in that time has been to create that platform as being, if you like, the one-stop shop, the place where you can go for information, for community building, for knowledge sharing, for dialogue, for ideation, for a lot of different things. Now, looking at that platform now, the capacity, its potential, its functions, the content is much greater than we, as Workplace Innovation Europe, have the capacity to fully exploit. So what we want to do is to find a way, and this is written into our Bridges sort of work plan, to give the intellectual property and the legal ownership of that platform to the Industry 5 community of practice. It's open about how we would do that. We're not looking for any reward for it because we think this is something which would be a really important legacy. And we welcome your ideas.
Thank you, Peter. So developing, improving the tools and making use of the tools that already exist that can actually support that connectivity within the community of practice. Great. Now, Łukasz, when you look at what the community of practice has been doing, the activities that have been there for the last 2 years, which of them you find particularly valuable? Which of them you think should be taken forward? And what are the areas where there are maybe some gaps or improvements to make?
One remark, just 1 year. It was 1 year since I joined the community of practice. What a year it was. So I had a lot of the observation, I had a lot of the discussions with you guys, basically to understand how can we better in implementing of the Industry 5.0. So there are a couple of the areas that I believe we are doing good, but there are options to be better. And I think we all align that we have a potential that is not fully utilized in the community of practice. So starting with the communication, fully aligned. This is something which it's really a pain. It's fantastic when the experts can speak, can talk to each other, and they are finding the one passionate topic and they are just flying around it. So I think that's the role of the community of practice, to make a space to allow it, maybe via the virtual platform, maybe via the communication like that, or more of the meetings like this one. So if we would like to be also more organized, more structured, I think there needs to be some points rising here. So building the better communication, preparation of the meetings, that is something that really helps to drive the effective discussions. And what is missing right now, and this is what you bring during today's discussion, is follow-up actions. Sometimes we are just discussing, we have the nice idea and nothing happens there. So kind of the following action, kind of the homework, I would say, is going to be something that's I think this community needed. So from the perspective of PMO, I think this one is ticked. Second aspect is the education. It's super important to making sure that we're going to be forefront of the education. We're going to help to embrace the idea of Industry 5.0, so we need to put an effort of the education. Not only, I would say, one direction, like all right, this is the body of the experts who is saying this is how the Industry 5.0 adoption should look like, but also something which is missing, and thank you for bringing that today, is like we also need to be kind of the advocates or the tube for the European Union. Like, all right, this is the program. that's going to help you from the industrial perspective to move forward. Maybe this research center going to help you resolve your problem. So that's kind of the educational. I think we own the market right now in the European Union. So that should be kind of our give back to the Industry 5.0 idea. And last but not least, the essence of the community, putting Industry 5.0 into the practice. So finding the way to really work on the cases which are typical, the cases that are desired by the industry, come out together with not only the experts from the heavy industry, but combine it with the universities, combine it with the smaller researchers and so on. That's work fantastically. But start working on a true cases, something that is real, and there's going to be value. There's going to be more and more of the documentation. There's going to be tangible results of this community, something that's going to last.
Okay, thank you, Łukasz. So now building a bit on the improving the communication and tools for communication, building some concrete outcomes, practical outcomes, and the value for members. Greta, I have a question for you. We already discussed here that it would be good to strengthen further the ownership of the members of the community of practice itself, which would help us progress towards a community that would be a bit more independent, more self-managed in terms of the organizational model. So would you have some ideas how this could be achieved?
Yes. So I think it's a difficult question, and I will start by saying that I don't think that the community of practice is ready to kind of be completely self-managed, because I think it's still quite a new organization, and I think there's a need for a central coordination, and I think it's important that the European Commission has a central role in really coordinating and being kind of the strategic and leaders. That said, I think it's essential that we find a way to make everyone here in this room be part, and I think there's everyone that is in this room today, and there's so many more people in the community of practice. Everyone is here because they burn for something, either to create good workplaces for European citizens, or is it to rescue the environment, or to become resilient towards different threats. We're all here for that purpose, so I think with that we have a lot of energy to actually do good, without getting so much, back in terms of money or something like that. I think we're all here because of that passion, and we want to achieve something. But as I said in the beginning, I think there's still a need to build the trust, and for that we need a central leadership. So in terms of how do we organize the community of practice, I think we can look at, for example, the World Economic Forum or the OECD, how they organize themselves, and they do a lot of good work. I think our strength is also that we have, really policy making in the community, so we can have an even bigger impact if we do it right. So I would see an organization where we have a leadership from the European Commission that is setting the goals, and really also timeline-wise, sets goals in terms of time. When do we want to achieve what? That of course links back to how do we set those goals? How do we? What is good in terms of Industry 5.0? So we need to measure that, and there are good things going on in the community. For example, the Industry 5.0 tool that helps us to measure different indicators, and then we will see after time what are actually good indicators, and that also can help us to be competitive. And then I think it's important to delegate then to the members in the community that want to do good things, and connect them and have regular meetings, and facilitate that. And I think we have a lot of people here that have shared values, and there is a need, and for example, I think that it was a great idea to bring this up, Peter, with a platform to have a good way to connect people from all over Europe and have them discuss on shared interests, and that's where you can get things going. But I think there need to be a central way how to coordinate all the work and have a very straightforward task forces.
Thank you, Greta. It's from the perspective of the Commission, it's always nice to hear when stakeholders actually appreciate some leadership from our side. It's not always the case, but building on that, I will ask a question which is a bit risky for us sitting here. Stephen, in which areas do you think a continuous support of the Commission for the community of practice is actually needed?
Yeah, so this is in fact changing the leadership into what we can expect from the European Commission. The issue, of course, is that Industry 5.0 itself is what I would call soft policy. And soft policy, which is not shared by a lot of people, so there's still a big conflict and a big struggle to get it at the highest levels. But the fact that there is a lot of discussion and debate about the concept is a good thing, because it does align a lot of people with what is important for us. It is soft policy because it's not really fixed. It can go left and right. The advantage is its flexibility. So that's an important asset, because it can adapt to different environments. It's not fixed in law, and it doesn't set a whole set of rules. So I'm not asking for support in terms of more rules. But to keep it as soft policy. The only thing, of course, is that the community of practice is also a soft actor. So it is a fragile actor. It can be hurt quite easily. So what I think in terms of support from the European Commission is a kind of behavior that supports the community of practice. And that would be responsible and reliable fathership or mothership, depending on how you look at it, but to remain the owner of the community of practice in a lot of ways. Secondly, to be the connector for the community of practice, connecting towards the networks, but connecting also to the other parts of the European Commission. So that's a lot of things that are needed. And the last kind of behavior is to be sure that the European Commission itself remains a change actor towards Industry 5.0, so that, and that has been said also by Lukáš, education in that direction, but also in terms of the political messages that need to go. So if the European Commission can play that role, can have that behavior, that will be extremely helpful for the community of practice.
Thank you, Stephen. We heard a wealth of ideas that we will take home. We will be soon concluding with some final remarks, but before that, I would come back to the task that I've had for you, and I would like to ask for a slide or introductory slide, exactly. So please take active participation in this. Here you have the QR code. It will stay there for another 5 minutes so that you can calmly connect to the poll. And in the meantime, I would like to ask the final question. Ask for your final message, which more goes towards, well, not maybe a personal commitment, but a personal interest, also to warm up our audience for the question that will come in Slido. In which potential future activity of the community of practice would you be interested to get directly engaged? Maybe Greta, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm very interested in getting the Industry 5.0 tool running and used, and really, spread the word about Industry 5 so more and more people will understand what this is all about. Okay, perfect. Lukáš.
I would love to engage myself into the building the true business case and kind of the calculator for the Industry 5.0 cases that's going to come. This is something that is super important, not only from the perspective of sustainability, but it was raised here from the stage several times. We need to also focus on the business aspect. So,
Wonderful. Žiga?
Yes, for me it's all about impact. So as I said, we're running a European project called Prospects 5.0. We have this informal group of it's a cluster of projects working on the Industry 5.0. I think, we can very much link the activities, some of the activities, events, for example, to the community of practice. So that will be the practice part. That's one thing that definitely can happen and can, pretty quickly. And secondly, as I said, connecting these dots between different communities that are in Brussels, which I think will give a much even bigger impact to the community of practice. So happy to help with this.
Okay, thank you. Peter, your interest to engage?
Yes, thank you. I've, over my entire working life, one of the most enjoyable things I've done is bringing together unusual combinations of people and finding out what happens when those conversations start. So I'd be very happy to be involved in helping to coordinate the future of the community of practice. But beyond that, I think very much about building bridges between, if you like, research and practice, engaging companies, finding ways of really making Industry 5.0 actionable.
Thank you. And Stephen?
Yeah, so there are many roles, and in any of these roles I feel comfortable. But maybe, let's say, there's also leadership needed, and I know with Peter, we created in 1997 the E1 network, the European Work Organization Network at that time. Existed several years, and then in 2013 it was redrafted from E1 to EU Win. So the European Union would win one time again, so the Workplace Innovation Network, and that was 4 years supported by the European Commission, but after that it has continued as a self-organizing, self-funded activity. And working on that kind of perspective, that's something that I'm really engaged in. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we have a big set of ideas that can be really a nucleus for the future agenda for the community of practice. We have some first expressions of interest of people who would like to take them forward. That's fantastic. Now, before we close that panel, now I would like to turn to Slido. And the first question that we have for you, and please also here, if you want to engage, take out your phones, scan the code if you wish. The first question is, in which potential future activity of the community of practice would you be particularly interested? And you have here a free text, maximum 2 words to put in. And you can put in more than one answer if you want. Let's give it a moment. Okay. A lot of networkers in the room, great. And ambassadors, cool. What else do we have? In capacity building, but we have a lot of different ideas. That's great, because that also shows the diversity of the activities that we can have. We have tools design, networking comes out really strong, but also engaging in foresight, working on business, I guess business case, implementation, exchanging experiences. Okay, that sounds really, really interesting, and we have 66 already answers and growing, so fantastic. Let's wait for the moment. Regional hub. Regional hub, that's also an interesting idea, regional hub for Industry 5.0. Research projects, yes, we will need more research as well. Technologies and lighthouses, tools. Investment funding, that's also an interesting one. We have, again, toolbox creation, standardization, community building. Fantastic. I think that really looks very good. And we have, as I said, a real diversity of the different actions that we could take forward. Let's wait a moment. There are still some answers that are popping up so that we have a final picture. And the networking comes out really very, very strong. Capacity building and regional hubs and research projects. Fantastic. Let's move to the second question. The second question is, how would you see your future engagement in the community of practice and its activities? You can mark maximum 2 answers, and the answers, possible answers, are leadership role in the community of practice in general, leading or co-leading some specific activities, participating in selected activities of interest, observing what's going on, or you actually think that there is not so much for you and you would rather start thinking about disengagement. So let's see. Decreasing engagement is 0%. That's actually a good sign. Well, we knew that that question is a bit provocative. We would be worried if that came out on top. Okay, so leading, co-leading a specific activity, participating in selective activity was of interest. That's very good. But even a quarter of you said leadership role in the whole community of practice. That's great. We have 74 answers. 1% considers decreasing, so that's 1 person out of 74. That's not so bad. Okay, great. Well, I would like to ask you for a round of applause to our panel. I think they really did a great job. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it very much as well. And now I would like to invite my dear colleague who actually leads on our file on Industry 5.0, Diana Ognjanova, to take forward the next session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our final plenary session today. I have the pleasure of moderating this session. As you know, since the launch of the Industry 5.0 concept, the European Commission has funded a growing number of projects on Industry 5.0. Meanwhile, we have a substantial body of knowledge and evidence on Industry 5.0, which we can build on and further expand. So our next plenary session is called the State of Play of Horizon Europe Industry 5.0 projects. And I would like to invite our panelists to the stage. First, I would like to invite Ms. Simona Aceto. She is a project manager at NSB Project, and she will present at the project Prospects 5.0. Welcome, Simona. Then I would like to invite Ms. Nathalie Greenen. She is professor at Conservatoire National des Arts et Métiers in France. She will present the project Bridges 5.0. Welcome, Nathalie. Next, we have Mr. Chris Ivory. He is Professor of Innovation Management at Mellerdalen University. He will present the project Upskill. And now I would like to invite Ms. Siobhan O'Neill. She is researcher at Insight Research Ireland Centre for Data Analytics at University College Cork, and she will present the project Seismec. And last but not least, we have Ms. Aliona Lupo. She's a partner responsible for R&I and the EU funding at Initiativa, and she will present the project SURE 5.0. So welcome, dear panelists. So over the next 30 minutes, we will hear 5 concise project presentations. The panelists were asked to present the Industry 5.0 challenge that was addressed by the project, the approach taken and the innovation developed, as well as the lessons learned and the impact so far. Finally, they were asked to give some recommendations for policy and for scaling Industry 5.0. After these presentations, we will open the floor for a Q&A session where you will have the opportunity to ask the panelists questions. And so without any further delay, I give the floor to our first speaker, Ms. Simona Aceto, who will present the Horizon Europe project Prospects 5.0.
Thank you, Diana. So good afternoon to everybody. We are at the last session, but well, we hope we can raise your interest and you are not too tired. we start introducing the Prospects 5.0 project. That is an ambitious project because we are focusing on all the 3 pillars, on human centricity, sustainability, and resilience. And as you can imagine, our goal will be to facilitate the transition towards 5.0, mainly for SMEs, startups, and scale-ups. We decided to face some specific challenges, and we verified that, indeed, it is true. There are some challenges such as the technological integration, because the companies have this type of difficulties. There is the skill shortage to be faced. There is the sustainability pressures to be managed. And there is a very important factor, that is the organizational resistance. How can we say that these are tangible challenges? Because as you can see, we have 14 use cases involved in our project from 6 different industry sectors. So I can share with you which are here the companies, and at the same time I can show that they are from different sectors. So our opportunity is that we can deal with different perspectives. So we can test our tools and work concretely, as Lucas said, because he asked for a more concrete approach with these real business cases. In order to do this, what's the approach? So we have been asked, as Diana said, to talk about the approach. We decided to work with some innovation drivers. So in Prospects 5.0 project, we have digital gateways. So this means that companies, business support organizations, policymakers can have access to this digital gateway to gain information or to contribute, providing their input on 5.0. And this is the Wiki 5.0, our repository. We can involve them in a self-assessment platform we are developing, and then we can provide them with tools and guides, because also during our sessions before lunch, we discussed about the importance of tools and guidelines for the actors we are addressing. So we'll have this maturity model, we'll have the policy recommendations, we'll have the adoption toolkit, and the stakeholder engagement guide, because it seems that it's not important, but in fact, when you need to adopt innovation within your companies or in an ecosystem, you need to engage the different actors who are relevant for the success of your innovation. And of course, we also expected to provide this evidence for our users. We'll have implementation practices, as it was claimed before. We'll have the adoption factors that can facilitate the transition. We'll have the drivers and impacts and the best practice guide. But all these tools are going around the assessment framework that we developed in order to support not only the companies, but also the business support organizations and policymakers to understand what is the starting point. In a first overview that then needs to be analyzed more in depth. And in order to go through this innovation approach, we are using 3 flows for engagement. So we have also our community of interest with more than 120 members from different organizations, universities, research organizations, companies, clusters, association of industries, and we are involving them in order to co-create knowledge. We are involving them in our activities, in validation processes, and so on. We thought that it was important to have a place where upgrade the paradigm of 5.0, and that is the Wiki 5.0. And in addition to this, we thought that it was useful to have a flow addicted to the practices. So if you are looking how on solutions, of, if you are looking to answers to your doubts, you can use these assessment reports, and by the end of May, you will have also this self-assessment web app that will facilitate your work in this transition. The assessment framework is focusing on some KPIs on the 3 pillars, but the question is that working with our 14 use cases, we understood that it was important to have some core KPIs and some scenario-related KPIs. So the core KPIs are more strategical, and the scenario-related are more operational and based on the sector of the company as well as of their size, because there are different needs for different type of. This is the testimony of one of the company. This is the company in the technological, in the IT sector. For example, they said that thanks to this assessment framework, they gain a language and a structure, and they started to implement changes in terms of human centricity, resilience, and sustainability. As you can see, so this acronym are for human centricity, resilience, and sustainability. I don't have enough time, so I'm sorry. I skip to the recommendations, but then I will be available for questions about our use cases. Well, what about the recommendations? First of all, we recommend to scale up the Prospects 5.0 assessment framework as well as the Wiki 5.0. So we need to exploit the tools that can be useful for our target users, and we can do this already through the community of practice, through Aspire, EIT Manufacturing, and any other relevant partnership or association in Europe. It is important also for us that we work on the harmonization and simplification of the KPIs about sustainability, because companies can become crazy about all the sustainability reporting, the complexity, the legal frameworks, and so on. And it's also important that we work on the strengthening of the alignment of Industry 5.0 with the major European industrial strategies, such as Made in Europe and Process for Planet, and so on. And last but not least, our recommendation is to merge the various project communities into just one community. So this way we can exploit also the added value of each project, and we can merge and enhance the value of the different actors already involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simona. Natalie, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Diana. Good afternoon, everybody. We all agree that Industry 5.0 should put people at the center of technological change. The question is, are we actually getting there? Our answer, after a little more than 3 years of research across EU 27 and under the coordination of Stephen Don, that I don't see here anymore, is not yet, and we know why. Oh, I need to move the slides. European firms are digitizing faster than ever, yet work intensity is rising, mental health at work is deteriorating, and job insecurity is growing. So human-centric outcomes do not seem to show up yet. The standard policy response is more technology subsidies, but if technology alone is not delivering, more technology will not fix this. We are solving the wrong problem. In the Bridges 5.0 project, our central argument is that the decisive variable is not which technology firms adopt, it is whether firms have the organizational capacity to learn alongside these technologies. We call this the learning capacity of the organization. The learning capacity of the organization is not an HR program, it is an investment, the key input into a knowledge production function. The learning capacity of the organization generates new ideas, activates technology and data into innovation. This is the business case. We are not asking firms to be nicer to their employees. We are telling them that the learning capacity of the organization is the asset they have been investing in. The learning capacity of the organization is a composite indicator of 8 dimensions. It is not a checklist. It is a validated empirical measure linked for the first time with digital technology adoption and use, as well as innovation and human-centric outcomes across EU 27, thanks to an innovative combination of Eurofound and Eurostat surveys. But measurement alone is not enough. Through Teaching Factories 5.0, applied in 5 countries, Bridges 5.0 project translates this into practice. The factory floor becomes a classroom, workers co-design their own learning, and the learning capacity of the organization is building where it matters, inside firms, in real conditions. Let's move to the findings now. The findings converge across country and methodologies, and this is an important result in Bridges 5.0. I'm not going to go through all the findings, I don't have time, but I'm going to pick up a few. First, the learning capacity of the organization effect on innovation is comparable in magnitude to the one of digital technology investment. This is one of the results we found from the econometric analysis of our data set. In our Teaching Factory 5.0 pilots, we also see how this teaching device translates into concrete firm-level outcomes. My last bullet point in this slide was about the hardest finding, but in fact, this finding is not going to be as hard as I thought it was going to be. I was going to be saying that the learning, what we found in the data is that the learning capacity of the organization had been stagnating for a long time. So that the bottleneck was not technological capacity, and I think that we agree with that in our discussions here, but the Bridges 5.0 project shows that it is in organizational inertia that we find the bottleneck. However, my colleagues in CNAM have worked overnight with the data of the last European Working Conditions Survey, and they found that between the last 2 editions, the learning capacity of the organization has slightly but significantly increased, and this is good news. So this is a result on which we are going to work, but our hypothesis is that this could be the result of the COVID crisis, because the COVID crisis has been an involuntary large-scale experiment where firms that survived granted workers more autonomy, improvised collectively, and discovered it worked. So if the bottleneck is organizational inertia, COVID showed it can be overcome. The question is whether policy consolidates that shift before it's going to reverse back. Maybe, we don't know. So let's move now to the policy implication. I have 3 main takeaways, and I'm going to be fast because I don't have much time left. First takeaway, invest differently. An Industry 5.0 funding scheme should take into account the fact that technology without organizational investment produce adoption, not always transformation. The fact that social dialogue must happen at the moment of technology design, not after deployment, when choices are locked in, is also an important point to take into account. The second implication is about measure for evidence-based Industry 5.0 policies. The Bridges 5.0 has moved forward on this issue, thinking in terms of measurement and infrastructure, and it found that there is a way to provide serious measurement through a reframing of existing EU instruments at the EU level. Eurofound data is core in this possible infrastructure. It should be supported, and its linkage with Eurostat dataset should be also consolidated. Last, think strategically and beyond DG OTD. The learning capacity of the organization is a competitive driver. We were able to show that. It leads to better innovation and better jobs. So this is the win-win argument to bring DG Grow, DG Employment and Finance Ministers into the conversation. And last, and we can discuss on that in the discussion phase of this panel, but AI must serve organizational learning, not bypass it, and we really have to think on the way it is deployed and implemented in the work context. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you also very much, Nathalie, for this insightful, very interesting presentation. Chris, now the floor is yours.
Right, okay. Okay, so the last time I was asked to give a 40-minute talk, I talked for an hour and a half before somebody shut me up, so this 5 minutes is going to be real difficult. Okay, so this is the upskill project. It's just coming to an end. 5 million euros, 4 countries, 4 universities. Basically what we did was, and it was great that the Commission funded this because it's quite an unusual way of doing research for the Commission, was that we would do technology interventions with our partner firms. There are about 11 firms in total in the end. And we do year-long ethnographies, social science research, alongside that at the same time. And the sort of two lots of researchers, the technologists and the ethnographers, kind of got entangled with each other and got some great results. I mean, the project's been wonderful for us. I must thank the Commission. Okay, so what were we interested in? First of all, we were really interested in driving Industry 4.0 into artisanal firms, for example. So we had a whole range of firms, all the way from Ford Motor Company down to accordion makers in Italy. And the question was, you know, what sort of technology interventions can we do with them around 4.0? And we started to pivot to 5.0 a little bit later. We were interested in worker centricity and skills shortages. Skills shortages was one of the drivers of this project. So it was a digital transformation project. We were using social science researchers. We were focusing on skills and innovation. So impact so far, lots of academic conferences, quite a few industry events, cross-project events that we've already talked about today. It says here 3 academic journal publications. So far, it's actually 4, but one of the professors in Italy forgot to mention the upskill project, so I can't count it. Slightly upset about that, and a whole lot of papers. So it's been quite an academic conference, quite an academic project, but we've been really engaging, you know, with firms along the way, with workshops, etc., etc. So, okay. So what have we learned from doing the project this way? Well, I'm kind of bound to say this, of course, because I'm writing the final report, but it's also true. Ongoing longitudinal engagement with the firms combined with technology support just produces really, really good results. You're disturbing the kind of socio-material fabric of the firm and then looking at how they respond to that and helping them respond to that. And that's been fantastic. We spent a lot of time talking, as I know all projects do, but that's also really been talking with the firms as well, having workshops. And I know the firms in particular have really appreciated the workshops. Some of the companies were difficult to access, but we did learn from this, and some of them were very, very resistant to innovation, but we also kind of learned from that as well. So, okay, so policy scaling and recommendations. One of the ideas we've come up with, and this is just a short list of a lot of ideas, we need to move away from our focus on the skills push model, the idea of training new skilled workers and somehow creating a labour market and they get absorbed by industry. What we found is that firms and regional ecosystems, they perform an extremely important role. For example, you know, people don't stay in the same firm in a region. They move from Volvo to Alfa Laval. They take skills with them. They might move back to Volvo. They might start their own firm and then move back to Volvo. And so we kind of followed these worker histories as they moved around. So we need to understand what the firms are doing, what other bodies are doing in that ecosystem to support these workers, keep them in the industry and keep the skills developing. This might mean having jobs that are really simple, real entry-level jobs that people without skills can take and then progress through the firms, then moves to other firms. And that's how innovation works, right? Circulating people around. So extend this thinking to the regional level as well, regional ecosystems. Somebody's finally said it, the Nordic model. We see really close relationships between Industry 5.0 thinking, which to us is a kind of slight retrospective, you know, towards these older Nordic economy models and the post-war American sort of shared prosperity model. There's a lot of similarities with these, so there's a kind of going back to that and rethinking that. So we had a really great workshop, final conference, and there was a lot of agreement that, you know, if we were just more Swedish, it would work. You know, big unions, engagement, everybody agreeing on everything, everybody being technology positive. Fantastic. It does seem to work, according to the guy from the Swedish Union who we had speak anyway. We really need to promote the attractiveness of industry to our young people. You know, we're forever telling them the future is digital, we're deindustrializing, you know, good jobs are in services and computing. It's just not true. And we need to be making this point and finding ways to get this message across to young people. And absolutely my kind of hobby horse at the minute, just to quote Martin Parker, UK professor, we really do need to think about bulldozing our business schools and starting again. They're all based on the neoliberal American model, Harvard Business School. We need business schools that train managers to think more holistically, to understand the relationship between worker engagement and innovation and growth, for example. We need to do more work in that direction. So yeah, bulldoze business schools, start again, management education. And have I finished? Yes, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Chris, for your very focused presentation. Exactly five minutes. And now, Siobhan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So today I'm just going to be talking about the Seismic project, which is piloting the shift to co-created human-centric industry. The Seismic project stands for Supporting European Industry Success Maximisation through Empowerment-Centred Development. Bit of a mouthful. How are we doing this? We are piloting Industry 5.0 technology development through co-creation with workers, development and deployment, and then the evaluation phase as well. So in this project, we're in the middle of it at the moment, and we have 31 partners from across industry, academia, research institutes, and trade unions as well. And we have 17 pilot partners that we're working with across 14 industry sectors, from things like textiles to automotive industry, from 14 different countries. The Seismic approach really is all about reshaping human-technology interactions, and this is a bi-directional approach that really resonates with European values of the three pillars of Industry 5.0, sustainability, human centricity, and resilience, but we have a particular focus on human centricity. And the way we do this, as I said, is working with the workers on the ground who will be engaging with the technology in their everyday work and allowing them to co-create and co-design their technologies of choice to improve and increase worker agency. And we're also including levels of human centricity throughout the development phase through various different features of these technologies. For example, explainable AI and trustworthy AI, privacy preserving methods, and increasing things like fairness and transparency as well. And really important and key here as well is the feedback mechanisms that the pilots engage to ensure that the workers have constant opportunities to feedback in an authentic way, which can then be integrated into further iterations of their technologies. Impacts and lessons learned. So as I said, we are halfway through at the moment, so there is a lot of lessons to be learned in the coming 2 years. Two particular deliverables that we have created to date are very useful in the context of this community of practice, and also to help companies to deploy and adopt Industry 5.0 technologies. So the first one is our design guidelines document. So this collates tools, methodologies, and assessment criteria to act as a roadmap, essentially, to help companies to implement Industry 5.0 tech. And then the second one is the Agile Guidebook for iterative and collaborative participation. So this is really focused on engaging with the workers, how to effectively communicate with workers to have them be full participants in the co-design of their technologies in a meaningful, sustained, and actionable way. In terms of pilot engagement to date, so we have, as I said, 17 pilots. They range from small family-run SMEs to large multinational companies. They have all participated in co-design activities of various types over the last 2 years to start developing their technologies. A lot of the companies are now at the point where they're starting to deploy the first round or the first iteration of these technologies. And we're also developing or have developed a robust research protocol to explore or examine what we call transversal themes across these 17 pilots. So these are to explore how the seismic process has had an impact on things like cybersecurity and privacy, human trust and understanding, critical issues in co-design and inclusion, and in-work learning and skills development. In terms of lessons learned, buy-in from management here is critical, so having them on board in terms of the need for the voice of the workers to play an active role in the co-design activities, and then also creating that direct engagement with workers, making sure that you're building up that rapport so they are safe and willing to share their insights with us in order to develop those technologies. A tailored approach is important. So as I mentioned, our design guidelines documentation provides numerous different approaches that can be implemented, and these should be tailored towards the specific industry or company that you're working with. Consistent and meaningful communication in a bidirectional way is really important here as well, to ensure that the progress of the pilots is going ahead according to schedule. And one key way that we've done this is to, assign a pilot coordinator from one of the partners. So it's their job to ensure that any communication with the pilots goes through them and vice versa, so that everyone is clear on their responsibilities and the state and status of those pilots as well. In terms of policy and scaling recommendations, as I say, we are halfway through. These may change with time. I suppose we really need to provide practical evidence-based steps and guidelines to support the development and adoption of Industry 5.0 technologies, but specifically with engaging meaningfully with the workforce to ensure that the technologies are doing what the workers need them to be doing. Policy as well should consider the importance of developing trust and understanding of technologies to also improve that adoption and reduce fear and resistance to change. Training and skills development is really important here, and it has been mentioned throughout the day, but also quality of work indicators should be included in these projects to monitor and evaluate. And the inclusion and worker well-being is a really critical issue here for Industry 5.0 and should be at the fore of any policy. And I suppose a lot of us are working in this area, and as was mentioned before, it's not new. There are companies in Europe that are already implementing Industry 5.0 technologies, but it's trying to get that information out there and share the best practice of those different companies and so on. So providing a mechanism for clear communication and dissemination of project outcomes, but also of the companies that are already adopting this work. And that's it for me, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Siobhan, very insightful. And the final presentation is by Aljona.
So good afternoon, and thank you, Diana, for invitation. Just see how it works. So I'll try to also quickly present SURE 5.0 project. It was financed by the European Commission, and it involved 14 partners from 8 countries. At least 3 partners of the project are involved in the community of practice 5.0. So in the project we represented with all the partners, in particular 3 ecosystems. The first one focused on mobility, transportation, automotive. The second one on aerospace and defense, and the third one on electronics. All type of organizations were represented in the consortium, from business support organization to research organizations and clusters representing these industries. So we focused on all the 3 core pillars of Industry 5.0, that is human centricity, resilience, and sustainability. What also we our main approach that we focused, this is also a really very practical project, so we put into action what was possible and what is behind Industry 5.0 through an integrated support scheme dedicated to the small and medium enterprises across Europe. So our services were focused on business and technological mentoring, training activities, but a relevant part were represented by the third-party financing scheme envisaged in the project. So our companies, our SMEs, very small micro enterprises, were involved in particular in different innovation projects. Just a few examples: in aerospace and defense sector, we worked a lot on sustainability, on supply chains. In electronics, we worked on technologies, on software, on environmental sustainability, etc. In the mobility sector, the focus was on digitalization, on artificial intelligence, environmental sustainability, predictive maintenance, etc. So within the project, 53 SMEs received European support in terms of funding up to 50,000 euros, and they were able to develop different aspects linked to Industry 5.0 inside, based both on the services acquired outside the consortium and on the services provided by the consortium. So what was also relevant that we try to involve in the mentoring activities, all type of enterprise employees, so also workers also involved, and this ensured indeed that the technological innovation has been uptaken at all process levels in the enterprise. So what worked well? For sure, that funding scheme was managed very, very well, and all the companies benefited from this type of support. The enterprises shows very, let's say, a huge interest to the mentoring activities provided by different type of experts, and we also leverage a lot on very innovative self-assessment tools. One was developed by Fraunhofer IPT Institute, and it was able to evaluate all the aspects in relation to Industry 5.0. The other one was developed by the business support organization and was focused mainly on the investment readiness of the company in relation to the transition to Industry 5.0. Some barriers, for sure, the language barrier was one of the aspects, so the proximity is something very relevant when working with the small and medium enterprises. the engagement of the SMEs in not funded activities were a little bit low, and also there were some lack of from the SMEs to absorb all the activities provided by the partners. I will not repeat what the other colleagues in other projects mentioned. The recommendations are somehow very similar. What is relevant, it is that based on all the discussions we have during this event, but also on the results of our project, what is relevant is to study dedicated, in my opinion, support schemes for small, medium enterprises that, differently from large enterprises, have really huge barriers in the transition. So there are limited internal resources for the management of dedicated activities towards the transition, the Industry 5.0 transition. SMEs need to have a better understanding how circular business models are viable from an economic point of view. So from this perspective, any action from the European Commission in terms of more dedicated, studied support schemes for them will be very useful. So that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alona, for this very rich presentation. Thanks to all of you. These very focused, very rich presentations, rich in terms of knowledge, evidence, and in recommendation. We have around 20 minutes time for a short Q&A session. I would like to ask you to present yourself if you would like to ask a question, and to also say to whom you would like to address the question. So the floor is yours, dear audience. There is a question in the background.
Yeah, my name is Araya Bravo. I work for EIT Manufacturing. And my question was for Leona and about the bridge between the SURE 5.0 project and the Bridges 5.0 project. Like how this, how the learnings from one project came to the other.
Mm-hmm. So, thank you, interesting question. Should we collect maybe a couple, or would you like to reply? Because I don't see any other for the moment, so please go ahead, you can reply. We really appreciate also your focus on...
Do you hear me? Yes. Thank you, Soraya, for your question. Indeed, I didn't mention that all the learnings from SURE 5.0 project we served as an input for other projects we are involved in, together with the EIT Manufacturing, IMEN, and other partners. So we used a lot, for example, this self-assessment tool in another ongoing European project that is called Bridge SMEs. It's not a Bridge 5.0, Bridge SMEs, which has the aim to match two types of enterprises: traditional SMEs that are in need of advanced technologies, of human-centered technologies, with tech-savvy SMEs that indeed provide the necessary technologies for this type of enterprises. As well, all the training activities provided in SURE 5.0 served as a basis to continue within another European project that started in December, Renaissance project. It is supported by Erasmus Plus project, where we work a lot on the skills aspects. So what is relevant, in my opinion, is indeed to go on and not to reinvent the wheel, as we stated many times today, but to build on what was already done. Yeah. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Sizi Onar. I'm from École de Pont. I have a similar question, actually. In the first session of this summit, we saw that there is an assessment tool, self-assessment tool for Industry 5.0. And Prospects project also has a maturity model. And in the other models, they also have some assessment tools. Is there a way for us to work on all these maturity models and create one maturity model or self-assessment tool? We gather all together and then decide what is the best way to actually analyze and give direction to the companies. To Simona or any one of you, actually.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose that this is a question both for me and for the community of practice and the European Commission too. Well, we were discussing before with Diana about how to, exploit and introduce the assessment tools to the wide public, because, well, in fact, several projects are working on it. Also, Greta introduced the assessment tool by the community of practice. If we go in depth into each of them, probably we'll see that some of them will be at the initial assessments, some others for a deeper assessment, and some others for the final assessment. I don't know, this is a kind of hypothesis I made, because it's a pity if we work together on the same kind of goal, so the assessment, monitoring, and evaluation. It's a pity if we lose the different tools. Probably the different tools are also addressed to different actors. Some of them could be more suitable for small and medium enterprises, some other for big enterprises, some other for policymakers, or I don't know. So that's why I asked also Diana and the European Commission to think about the possibility to introduce the different assessment tools also in a webinar in which we can highlight the main features of each of them. So because from my point of view, for example, the prospect assessment is at the beginner level. So you are curious, you want to discover how you are positioned in the 5.0 framework, so you can start with it. But then, if you want to go in depth, you need another tool. Or probably you need a tool together with a consultant that can support you in the definition of the strategies. In the assessment tool of prospects, we'll also have this chatbot supporting, the user, but it's a chatbot that is supporting you in the explanation or the definition of the different indicators. Because for us, as a designer, we give for granted that that indicator is understandable for everybody. But also the word resilience, it's not easy because the company can understand adaptation, but resilience is something that is a trend. It's something that it's for this historical period. So yes, the idea is that to work on the different assessment and make up a kind of puzzle so you can be driven towards which is your first choice, depending on your level and your profile. I suppose that then Diana or the European Commission then can integrate what I said, because this is my proposal.
Yes, very much. I mean, we totally agree to facilitate an exchange on the different tools. This will add a value to our exchange and our plenary session today. But I think Natalie would like to also reply to this question, and Chris as well, before we go to the next.
Yes, thank you. In the Bridges 5.0 project, it's not an assessment tool, but it is a measurement exercise. And the idea we have in this project was to assess what could be used in the existing statistical system at the EU level to approach and measure Industry 5.0. So it's another type of exercise. It's interesting because it forces us to create some linkage between the models that underlie the existing statistical system and the model that is underlying Industry 5.0, and it is a good exercise also to think conceptually on how we could move forward with Industry 5.0. The function of that type of measurement tool is not the same as the self-assessment tool, but of course there are some strong synergies between them, and I think that I was in the self-assessment tool session earlier on, and there were plenty of interesting ideas that I could get from that work that was interesting for my way of thinking what are the data gaps, in fact, in the EU statistical system. So there is probably a lot of interesting work and to do together on this measurement issue that has, of course, different dimensions.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Very interesting. We had another question from the audience, 2 more actually, yes. And we have 10 more minutes, so we are good in time.
Thank you. My name is Frank Geels from the University of Manchester. I had a question to Natalie. So I was quite interested that your research showed also either no effect of IT and all the smart stuff on human-centeredness, or maybe even some negative effects, although your recent research showed more positive. It resonates with my own experience in my university, where increasingly things are centralized. It's about efficiency, so there's no support staff. Email and other ITs are all used to outsource stuff, so rather than help, you get a 50-page PDF document telling what you should do, which is impossible to read, and just IT services doesn't work. If you call them, you need to wait in a line. So, I mean, in my university, also more and more workload, so there's a lot of, in my work setting, a lot of frustration with how IT is being used, not to improve my life, but for more administrative purposes of cost-cutting, efficiency, so we can have less support staff, which is But for the worker down the line, myself and staff around me, it's just more and more frustration. The same happens, I don't know, this is since COVID, with swimming pools. If you want, in the past, you just show up, buy a ticket. Now, particularly since COVID, you need to have an app. You need to download it. You need to book it in advance, which is impossible for my grandmother. So she used to go swimming. She can't go swimming anymore. So it's got exclusionary effects. I've got children in school. Similarly, you need to have an app. You get overload of information. If you go to the health services, similarly, you need to fill things in. You need to book things. You need to... so that's fine for the organization, the swimming pool or the health service, efficient for them, but it's all outsourced to me, to my wife. So you got more and more in the evening, you're watching television and doing your app and filling in this form and that form. So it looks efficient from the organization, but there's a lot of inefficiency if you take the wider users into account. So I feel there's a lot of negative effects, exclusion, overload, outsourcing of responsibilities from the center to people who've got other things to do. So there's a lot of nice thinking in Industry 5.0, but if organizations use it for different purposes, to cut their own costs, it has negative effects. So I was wondering if this is taken into account, if you've got more research on this, or only sort of unintended negative consequences.
So thank you for your intervention and the examples you give. In fact, the point we make in the Bridges 5.0 project is that I think this community and people in business in general are used to think about investment when they think for technology. But it is more difficult when it comes to organization. But organization is also an asset for companies. And we have to, it's important to think of it that way. But not all types of organization is an asset. You are giving examples of forms of organizations that are disrupting performance and efficiency. So this is why we want to measure a specific dimension of the organization, which is its capacity to learn collectively. And this capacity is a capacity that works together with technology to produce efficiency. But if you don't invest in that capacity, then you have the technology and you have all the problems of your grandmother that cannot go anymore to the swimming pool. So the idea we have in the way we measure things is that it is also important to measure things by asking employees about how they see it, not about their work satisfaction, but about how they work with the technology, what they do with it, how do they learn with it. An important topic is how are we going to learn with AI? Is it going to be to help us improve the way we learn individually or collectively or not? And this has to be thought of as an asset for companies.
Thank you, Natalie. We have one question or two more, and then we will close the round.
Hi. Diana, two questions for you. The first one is about, related to the community of practice, what is your balance of these last 2 years? And the second question is, what are going to be the next steps? Thank you.
And we take the one final question.
Thank you very much. I'm Panos Fitzilis from Greece. So I would like to ask to Simona if the maturity framework you have developed, have you tested it in a number of enterprises? What were the results? How things are going?
Thank you very much. So in terms of the design guidelines documentation, that is what we are following in our pilots at the moment. So we are in the process of evaluating, and as I said, the project is it's year 3 now, so the deployment stages are starting. So we're going to be starting to get that rich information from the pilots to see what that impact has been. Anecdotally, it's going quite well. The workers that I've engaged in terms of co-design activities and using those design guidelines has been very positive and has been impactful. So they've felt that they have real ownership over the technology, and hopefully we will see that across the board with the pilots when results start coming in. Thank you.
Yeah, and to my questions, as you know, since the launch of the community of practice in 2023, the community has grown. So we have currently around or even more than 350 members. So I think this is a success. Over the last year, 2 years, I cannot speak because I actually joined, I started my work on Industry 5.0 only last year, in summer last year. But I'm building on the work done by my predecessors and my colleagues who have done an amazing job, I believe. But it is up to you to assess this. About the future, as you have experienced today, we are discussing new forms of governance of the community of practice, and we will stay in touch with you on the next steps. We will first analyze the rich information that we have received, the feedback that we have received from you, and we will get back to you. There are also some commitments from our side that we will exchange on the different assessment tools, which I found very interesting. Thanks to Greta also today for presenting the tool. We have, by the way, we have posted it. We posted the link also on Futurium, our platform, where you can also exchange very actively with each other, share good practices, share your latest articles. This is something which we find very inspiring. And so with this, I would like to thank all of you for this very rich, inspiring session. I would like to ask for a big applause for our panelists. And with this, we will conclude the session. We will now move to the wrap-up, which will be presented by Ms. Doris Schrecker.
So I'm presented with the last but not underestimable challenge to wrap up and to conclude on this day, which was super intensive, super commitment. You're still here, it's Friday afternoon, not even early afternoon, so it's impressive. And let me try to summarize, because it will be incomplete. We count on you to give us feedback. You may agree or disagree with the choice I'm making, but it is part of a discussion process where we conclude today, but then continue on a next step. So we started in the morning discussing competitiveness, and we broadened the scope of what we're looking at almost into the entire scope of what we call industrial policy. So we are very well aware that with Industry 5.0, that's not exactly the point. But we realize that there are external factors which may have an influence on the uptake and on the success of the concept on which we are working here. But there was very strong agreement to turn this concept into a practical reality in industry. And we have seen today examples. You just reported of examples from the projects. So we can be optimistic about that with all the winds blowing in our faces from international competition. And one suggestion also came clear in starting something very concrete. We have these self-assessment tools. There is obviously appetite to test them, to compare them with each other. For me, that would be already a very first, very concrete action for the, I see Diana nodding, for the community to look into this and also to promote their use and to come back with new results. I try now to structure also the elements which I got from this whole day of so many discussions. I see that there is great interest that the community continues. You want to be active. It was impressive what we saw on Slido as well. To be active in concrete projects. So we need to give some thought into what kind of projects, what kind of project type activities could the community develop. One thing is that we rely very much and welcome your ideas. We heard about experience sharing, networking with a purpose, I would say, and with some targeted outcome. We have spoken about how to expand the community, the application community, to reach out to industry, to reach out maybe to the education sector. We have universities represented, but then we haven't spoken about business schools, for example, or about what does this mean for the curricula for innovation management or so. So these are maybe aspects we may want to consider. We've heard that we can reach out to partnerships with industry, which we have already, industry fora, individual companies, etc. So the floor is open for your input on what are projects where you think that as a community you can work together, you can agree on a way forward, you go out, you do it, you come back, you report, and you share experience. We have also experienced members of the community which know how to organize these processes. So if we can mobilize a bit of that, that would be very, very welcome and very interesting. Now, speaking about the attractiveness of industry, we heard that we still need to harvest experience and results on the business case, on measuring the impact, measuring the effect on the success of a company. We speak, of course, at the industry level, but we are interested in, if we want to have it implemented in individual companies, that they see also an incentive. We heard impressive examples. So the question is, how can we replicate and promote that concept? And I want to add here two aspects. One is maybe how to get faster with innovation in the context of applying the Industry 5.0 approach and the principles. And the other one was resilience, which we may need, with the human touch, the human focus maybe in that context. So we will think about how to best organize and help to organize the work of the community, how to make best use of platforms. I heard as well that you want to reach out to policymakers. So we are definitely in a listening mode here. We organized, we enjoyed also the exchange with you today. I would appeal to you that if you want something from the policymakers also at higher level, please help us. Make sure also that messages get broader to the community of policymakers in the member states. In the regions we heard, they can be very close to companies as well, and also to the Commission. So we come back, I think I hear a little bit about what I heard about the influencer role and how to communicate about the concept without overcomplicating the message which we want to give here as well. And of course, we are at the time that we are looking forward in the not very far future, that we have new programs, and to see also how we place that. And for us, the question will also be, are we still talking about research and innovation, or are we talking about innovation and business? So that is also something which may come in here as an element. So please give us your views. Our next step is to share with you a report of today, where we will invite you also to give us feedback. So we will put a contact address on that so that we can continue and share until we come up with something on our side as well, to have a sort of work plan and to ask you in the community as well to develop a work plan. So I come back to the idea of having projects and having maybe a sequence of events and how to organize the experience and information sharing. And with this, I would like to thank as well for having this day together. And I start now first with the team who supported us with the logistics of the place. That's the Spectra Consortium and the ICF Next, who helped us that on technical things everything went fine. And I hope you found the food very nice. That was also selected by colleagues. So that was... Then next, my own team here. So you met already Dominic and Diana and Karel and Christian. We have also Jean and Panagiota in particular, and Maria and Georgios. So we also made sure that you are in good hands, so you can trust us at least for this day. I would very much like to thank all the speakers who were so well prepared and so to the point and straightforward with your interventions. It was for us a real joy to moderate, yes, to moderate and to listen. I hope you all enjoyed that. And you brought a lot of ideas already to build on and to take forward. And not the least, I want to thank you all here in the room, still around here at almost 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, and online if you happen to be still around, to make this hopefully a success where also you take already back a lot of ideas and inspirations. And I hope that you feel that you had the opportunity also to contribute and to exchange and to meet people where you think that this was worthwhile and you can stay in contact. On our side, we still have a lot of interest in the concept. I hope that you felt that on our side as well. Help us to convince our masters as well in these changing periods to find a place for the future. We will develop some ideas with which we will come back to you. And I would like to close with something which we started. We have a lot of strong winds ahead of us and against us in Europe, but we also felt that we have a lot of strengths to build on. And that is the knowledge we have and the excellence. That is the ability to act if we want. We can be faster. We have trust in our adaptability. in the people which we have around everywhere, and in understanding the need for sustainability. And with this, I would like to close the day and thank you very much for, I think, a good event, and I wish you a good travel home and a good weekend, and we continue to stay in touch. Thank you.